25 years, I've helped during that time tens of thousands of people create a relationship with money that actually empowers them and allows them to build the kind of prosperity and wealth that they want. And I think that, there are a lot of content creators out there who are talking about how to make money, how to get rich, how to be successful, how to be an entrepreneur. But there are very, very few people that are actually talking about the mindset that's required to build the kind of wealth that people want. And without that kind of mindset, same thing for a business, same thing for a relationship, it's very, very difficult and you will run into a lot of roadblocks.
Indeed, money mindset come to us. So, Mr. Pericles, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world once again. So today, let's talk about shifting negative money mindset. Let's start
Sure.
defining the enemy. What is a negative money mindset? Really? Is it a set of
It-
belief or something else?
yeah, it's actually any negative thought, any negative feeling, or any negative action related to money that we think, that we feel, or that we take. So we think the thought, we feel the emotion, and we take the action. And anytime that something like this shows up that's negative, and oftentimes we don't notice it, and this is the most important part of it, is we don't acknowledge and notice when we have a negative conversation, or we don't even realize it's a negative conversation. So
Mhm.
for some people, it might be as simple as money's the root of all evil. Well, that's a negative conversation around money that will actually stop you from ever having the kind of money that you want. People who are wealthy are bad. That's another one. If you believe that, or you think that, or even have that thought, that will keep you from creating the kind of wealth that you want. I was working with a client just the other day, and for them it was, it's always something. It's always something. I make some money and then something happens and the money disappears. That negative mindset will actually create something showing up every time you make money. So the first step for all of you who are listening is to really look at and notice, what are the negative thoughts, emotions, and feelings and actions that I have around money? And then we can have the next conversation, which is about actually clearing them out so that you can have an empowering relationship with money rather than a negative relationship with money.
A negative relationship. We don't like that. People,
No.
this, no, no, no. This mindset often form in childhood. What are the most common money scripts or silent narratives people observe from their families that become the adult financial operating system?
Yeah, this is actually what I like to call generational mindsets around money. And it is when we're very young and impressionable when these occur, for the good or for the negative. And so I think some of the most common ones are, there's never enough, money doesn't grow on trees, money's the root of all evil. It's always something is another really good one. And for everyone, it really is important to start to look at what are those common conversations. And you may not be able to notice it. You may just have a feeling. When you start talking about, or you start engaging with money, or you start considering money, or a conversation pops up around money, you may have a negative feeling in your body. Like all of a sudden you get a wave, that hot flash of, you feel bad, or you feel just uncomfortable or nervous or stressed. Those are all negative emotions around money that will impact your ability to create and have the kind of money that you want. So look for yourself, for all of those who are listening to this, look for yourself to see what, and you may not ever be able to identify where it came from. That's irrelevant. It does not matter if you can go back to, like, when I was a little kid. One of the things that my mom said, and she didn't say this with any intention at all, it's just something that she'd learned. She said, I never want to have a lot of money because you lose your whole family. Well, that was a money mindset, a negative money mindset that I took on. Well, I never want to have a lot of money. I'm going to lose my whole family. And that became the glass ceiling of my ability to earn and keep money. And until I was able to notice it and then clear it, I wasn't able to move beyond it. And now that that's gone, I can actually expand how much money I can earn and how much money I can keep, because there are two conversations here. It's not just about making money. There are a lot of people that are really good at making money. We look at lottery winners who win millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, and 80% of them go broke within the first 5 years. Well, that is because their money mindset isn't set the way it needs to be set to keep that kind of money. So you may be able to make a lot of money, but you can't keep it. You may be able to keep a lot of money, but you can't make more than you want. You may be able to make a lot of money and keep a lot of money, but you're still miserable. Any one of these dynamics will impact your overall joy and prosperity.
Indeed. So, how can someone start to identify their own hidden money story? What is the telltale behaviors like consistent self sabotage, intense anxiety, and checking accounts, or irrational
Yes.
guilt after earning?
Yeah,
Hmm.
you've nailed it right on the head. First is to look to see when those conversations show up. If you say, okay, I'm going to do X to make a lot of money, and then you hear in the back of your voice, you hear that little voice in the back of your head say, yeah, but it's not going to happen for you. Yeah, but you're not smart enough. Yeah, nothing ever works out for you. That's it right there. You want to catch that. Second thing, you can look at self-sabotaging. This is really something most people don't even pay attention to. They think, okay, I'm going to be really responsible with my money. And then 5 minutes later, they're at the store buying something that they don't need and somehow justifying why they just spent money on something that they don't need. So those negative actions actually sabotage our ability to save the way we want and build the kind of wealth that we want. Same thing with just taking actions. I need to let everybody know I'm wealthy. I want everybody to think that I'm wealthy when you're not, right? So you're buying things that you can't afford. You're doing things that you can't afford to do. Also, other people will think you have money. Meanwhile, you're going into debt. That is the kind of self sabotage. And a lot, and I'm not saying everyone, but there are a lot of content creators out there who love to do videos on private jets. Well, those private jets aren't private jets, they're studios where they can go film. And we live in a culture where looking like we have wealth is far more important than actually having wealth. I want people to think I'm wealthy, but in fact, I'm actually struggling every single day. But everybody thinks I'm wealthy. Well, everyone has to make the decision of what it is you want. Do you want to live in a world where people think something about you that isn't true and you're suffering? Or do you actually want to live in a world where you don't really care about what other people think about you because you're doing what you need to do to build the kind of wealth that you want, the kind of wealth that lasts and grows over time? Those are the tough decisions that people are faced with, and everyone gets to choose their own path. So for some people, they're not going to do that. They're not going to say, you know what, I can't afford to go to dinner tonight. I haven't put the money aside. I'm not going to go to dinner. That's the kind of hard choice that we have to make. You know what? I'd love to come to your wedding on the other side of the country, but I don't have the money for the airfare or the flights. I love you and I'd love to be there, but I don't have the money and I don't want to go into debt. I love you. I'm there in spirit. Those are these are actual conversations I've had with clients who are willing to put themselves into debt because they have a conversation of, but I didn't have a choice. I had to. We always have a choice. We never have to, right? So we want to start having those hard conversations with ourselves.
We have a choice, people. So choose the right one. The roots, shame, scarcity, and identity. Mr. Pericles, money is intensely emotional. Why is shame such a common paralyzing thread in negative money mindset? And how is it actively prevent practical change?
Wow, money is truly an emotion. It can be an emotional trigger, and I think that it's because we grow up in a world where you can go your whole life without ever owning a car or learning how to drive a car. You can go your whole life without ever owning a home or without ever being in a relationship. But you cannot grow up and live in a world without ever interacting with money. It is integrated into everything that we do. And it is the one thing, because we interact with it all the time, almost every single day. And it is the thing we spend the least amount of time thinking about, the least amount of time we spend educating ourselves about money. So it's the thing we have to work with the most, and yet it's the thing we think about the least. And that is a huge gap for us to be able to close, to be able to kind of create the wealth that we want. And I think that the reason money is so emotional is because we attach so much to it. We think that money will provide us with so many things that money will never provide us. And because we attach that thought process to it, it becomes very personal. We think, I need money to be happy. I need money to be secure. I need money to be safe. I need money in order to have a relationship, right? All of these conversations are not accurate. I've been doing this a long time. And I promise you, if you think money's going to bring you happiness, money's going to bring you love or joy or freedom or security, you're in for a rude awakening, because it does not. Money cannot provide you with happiness. Happiness comes from within. Money is not something, money is something that we use to buy things. And I've worked with people who have a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars, and they can buy anything they want and they're not happy. They're not satisfied. It's not the money that provides those things. It's something from within. And when we can tap into that and find our own sense of joy, our own sense of happiness, our own sense of safety, security, and confidence, then as the money flows to us, we're going to find that money is a very, very different thing. And I think the most important distinction for everybody to know about this is money is not good and money is not evil. Money is just neutral, and it amplifies who we already are. So it will amplify. If you're a jerk and you get more money, it will just amplify that you're a bigger jerk. If you're sad or miserable and you get more money, you're just going to be sad and miserable at a higher level, having a lot more money. There are these are just general rules. These not doesn't mean you can't change. There are a lot of people that they start to make more money and they realize, you know what? Money isn't bringing me the happiness I want. I got to look within. Money isn't bringing me the security I want. So I got to look within. Then they start to make those changes. But then there are other people that don't. We see it all the time. People with lots and lots of money. And what do? They end up on the hamster wheel of wanting more. I want more. I want more. It's never enough, because they don't know what enough is. They don't know what being satisfied and happy is, because they expect the money to provide it, and it won't. So once we get to that place where we see, wow, I'm the source of my own happiness, my own fulfillment, satisfaction, I can have that right now without the money showing up. Then when the money does show up, first of all, it's easier for that money to show up. Then when it does show up, I'm living in a world where I'm already happy. Now, what am I going to do with the money? That becomes an adventure.
And sure, indeed. So, can we say, money can come to me? So, let's talk about scarcity versus abundance. Is abundance just a toxic positivity, or are there a neurological shift that occurs when we move from fear based scarcity loop to more open, resourceful state?
Yeah, this is a great conversation, scarcity versus an abundance conversation. So, scarcity is just another negative mindset. And a lot of
Mhm.
people live in it. I actually had somebody in one of my TikToks respond, I'm so afraid of getting a house because I'm afraid I won't be able to afford the payments. That's a scarcity conversation. And that scarcity conversation will limit your ability to ever have more. And if you're lucky enough to get more, that scarcity conversation will just get amplified. So a lot of people live their whole life saving and scrimping. They don't want to spend because they're afraid they're not going to have enough. And they know, when I retire, I'll be fine. But then they retire. And what happens? That scarcity conversation gets amplified because no more money's coming in. Suddenly they're like relying on their retirement. Like, oh my gosh, I need to be even more. So they live their whole life in a conversation of scarcity. Noticing that scarcity conversation and letting it go, and then surrendering to, and this is the hardest part, surrendering to and trusting that everything will always work out in my favor. I will always be taken care of. I will always have enough. These conversations will free you up, will get you out of that scarcity conversation or whatever version of that scarcity conversation you may have. And then on the flip side of that, when we're looking at abundance, this is something people say all the I just want abundance. I just want abundance. Well, we need to be careful what we're asking for because when we say I want abundance, you're being general. You could be asking for an abundance of money, but you're not saying I want an abundance of money. You're saying I want abundance. Well, that means an abundance of stress, an abundance of health issues, abundance of bills, an abundance of debt, as well as all those other good things that we want. So we want to be clear because our language creates the world in which we live and creates what it is we want to bring into our lives through manifestation. So when we declare, I want abundance, that general blanket statement can bring in a whole lot of problems as well as a whole lot of good. So be specific in the language that you use. I want an abundance of money in my life. I want an abundance of love in my life, right? And then start to look for it showing up in your life. And this is where, in the world of manifestation, people fall down and they think, okay, I'm going to say it once and it's going to show up tomorrow. That's not how a manifestation works. It's not magic. We're not in Harry Potter. It's not like, we say a spell and everything shows up. No, manifestation is a shift in our state, a shift in our physical being, our thought process, the energy that we're putting out into the universe. And when we consistently shift into that good feeling space, that good feeling energy, that will then attract like energy into our life. So we've got that feeling of money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. And we do that every day, all throughout the day. Then we look for it manifesting in our lives. This is the key. Well, look at that. I found a penny. Look at that. I found $1. Look at that. Somebody just talked to me about a business opportunity. Look at that. Somebody talked to me about hiring me. I may not accept those opportunities, but I'm acknowledging that money is showing up. The possibility of money is showing up and staying in that space of gratitude. That's when we start to create the world that we want around money, around joy, around love.
Definitely, Mr. Pericles, very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in sixth season too. Geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 our first season, science 101, sex 101, third season, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and Bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Pericles, as it best, what is the one other side of this shift beyond a better credit scores? What does a liberated relationship with money feel like, and how does it change one's sense of self, possibility, and peace in the world?
Yeah. What I find in the time that I've been doing this is that we actually find ourselves when we find our relationship or distinguish our relationship with money. We find a deeper, more powerful relationship with ourselves as we start to see the way we relate to money. So if we see that we relate to money in scarcity, we actually can see that we're relating in our lives in scarcity. Giving those things up allow us to live a more powerful and free life.
Powerful indeed. So, Mr. Pericles, can you please invite the listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever project that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. You can find me at periclesrellas.com. That's where I have my free masterclass, The 4 Keys to Resetting Your Financial Thermostat. You can follow me on TikTok, Pericles Rellas. I'm always creating content there on money mindset. I'd love to have you follow me.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Pericles Rellas, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering mindset will rise. So I have one more question. Mr. Pericles, is the goal always to become wealthy or wealthy? How do we define a healthy relationship with money that might look different across culture, individual values, separate from just accumulating more.
Yes. I think wealth is defined as having a life that you love, being surrounded by people who love you and who you love, and living a life that's just making a difference. And then inside of that, we can have more money, we can have more things, but having the foundation of that first is the way to have a wealthy and prosperous life.
Very well said. Mr. Pericles Rellas, thank you so much for your time.
Daniel, thanks for having me on. It's great to see you again.
Please do come over and over. I hope you will be my regular guest on Entrepreneurship 101. And let's talk about money, money, money come to us. So, Mr. Pericles, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Money come, people. See you